This is the second part of our first lesson on polynomials, and this is going to be on adding and subtracting polynomials. So it's right after where we learned how to do standard form of our polynomials. So if you can find this page in your note packet, basically the idea is we're basically going to be combining polynomials, which basically means we're going to be adding our like terms. So the key is they have to have the same variables to the same power. Otherwise, they're not like terms with each other. Okay? So like in the example here, 2x squared y and 8x squared y are both like terms. We would have 10x squared y's. Okay? All right, so the bottom half of this page just kind of shows you two different methods for tackling these problems, or basically how to set them up. The idea is we want to combine like terms together, and it's just a matter of how we organize that and work our way through it. So the horizontal method is basically leaving it written across the page. The one thing we do have to watch for is that subtraction. We're subtracting that entire second term. So if you remember when we've done this before, that's really the same thing as adding a negative one, and that negative one is being multiplied times each of those terms on the inside. We're distributing that negative through to everything. So this becomes 3x squared plus 2x minus 6 plus negative 2x minus x squared minus 3, because each of those terms got multiplied by negative 1. Then we simply combine our like terms together. 3x squared minus 1x squared is 2x squared. 2x and negative 2x is 0, so the x's drop out, and negative 6 and negative 3 is negative 9. So that's one way to tackle that kind of problem. The other is the vertical method, and you just kind of decide what makes more sense for you. Okay? The vertical method is basically lining it up vertically, putting like terms underneath of each other. So we still have to deal with that negative. So we're multiplying everything by that negative 1. The top term stays the same. So negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x, but I'm going to put it under the x term. Negative 1 times x squared is negative x squared. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And then we just add down the columns. 3 and negative 1 is 2x squared. 2 and negative 2 is 0, so that term drops out. Negative 6 and negative 3 is negative 9. You'll notice we get the exact same answer, it's just two different ways of setting up the problem. All right, so let's see that in action here. So first one should be hopefully pretty simple. We just want to add like terms together. So 4a plus 3a is 7a. Notice it's not a squared. I'm just counting how many a's do I have. I had 4 plus 3 more gives me 7 a's. And then negative 5 plus 6 is positive 1. Next one, I've got 6 xy's and 4 xy's. That's 10 xy's. Then I have 6 x's and negative 1x. That's 5x. And then I have 2 y's. So I'm simply combining those like terms together. For the next two, we got to take care of that subtracting first. So think of it as that subtracting is really a negative, and that negative gets thrown in through each of those terms. So the first one stays the same, 8p minus 5r, but instead of negative 6p squared, it becomes positive 6p squared. The 6r becomes negative 6r, and the minus 3 becomes plus 3. Now we look to see if we can combine some like terms. Well, I have only one that's p squared, so 6p squared. Only one that's just regular p, so 8p. But then I have a negative 5r and a negative 6r. That's a negative 11r. And then my plus 3. Okay. So let's see that in action again. I'm going to distribute that negative 1 to each of those terms. So it becomes plus 2x plus x squared minus 5. I have 8x squared, and x squared is 9x squared. I have negative 4x plus 2x is negative 2x. And then negative 3 and negative 5 is negative 8. All right, Next one is set up vertically. So let's leave it that way, and let's go ahead and tackle this one. So I got to distribute that negative. So it's basically going to switch the signs and everything else. So it becomes plus x squared minus 2xy plus 5y squared. It switches the signs in each of those terms. 4x squared plus 1x squared is 5x squared. 6xy minus 2xy is 4xy. And then 2y squared and 5y squared is 7y squared. Okay? All right, last little bit. This one says the polynomial is s cubed minus 70s squared plus 1500s minus 10,800 models a profit for a company selling an item at a certain price. A second item is sold, and its equation is, or its expression is here. We want to write a polynomial that expresses the total profit. Well, total means adding. So we want to add these two expressions together. So there's my first one. Here's my second one. I'm just writing it out so my like terms are under each other. And then I simply add them together. S cubed plus s cubed is 2s cubed minus 100s. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be an s squared there. Plus 1950s minus 15,800. All right, last one. The measures of two sides of a triangle are given. If the perimeter is 10x plus 5y, find the measure of that third side. Well, perimeter means to add all the sides together. So my first step is, let's add the sides we know. 3x plus 4y and 5x minus y. 3x plus 5x is 8x. 4y minus 1y is 3y. So that's what two of the sides give me. I know it has to add up to be 10x plus 5y, because that's what we told me the whole perimeter has to be. So basically, I want to know, what does that third side have to be? What would I add to 8x and 3y to get 10x and 5y? Well, to get from 8 to 10, I would need 2 x's. And to get from 3 to 5, I would need 2 y's. So this missing side is 2x plus 2y. All right, hope that makes sense.